The most blameless man on earth lost his children and everything he owned in a single day. Then his body was covered in sores. A woman, his wife, looks at him with pity and despair, urging him to end his suffering. She whispered to him, "Curse God and die." But Job remained silent, a broken man in his torn ochre robe. This unimaginable suffering came from a challenge in heaven Job would never hear. Before this horror, Job was a man of immense wealth, revered for his blameless and upright life. He had 7 sons and 3 beautiful daughters, who often gathered to feast in each other's homes. Each morning, Job offered sacrifices for them, fearing they might have sinned unknowingly. Meanwhile, in the heavens, the accuser appeared before the divine presence. The presence asked the accuser where he had come from, and he replied, "From going back and forth on the earth." Then the presence pointed to Job, asking, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him." The accuser challenged, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Stretch out your hand, and he will curse you to your face." The presence allowed the accuser power over all Job's possessions, but not over Job himself. On a day when Job's children feasted at their eldest brother's house, disaster struck. A breathless messenger, covered in dust, rushed to Job with terrible news. "Sabeans attacked our oxen and donkeys, killing the servants," he cried, fear in his eyes. Before he finished speaking, a second messenger stumbled in, his voice raw with horror. "Fire fell from the sky, consuming our sheep and all their shepherds," he gasped. Job's eyes widened, absorbing the second blow, dread tightening its grip. Then, a third haggard figure, frantic with grief, arrived, interrupting the last. "Chaldeans raided our camels, slaughtering every servant," he choked out, collapsing. The air grew heavy with a terrible premonition as a fourth messenger appeared on the horizon. His voice, filled with an unbearable quiet horror, began the final report. "A great wind swept from the wilderness onto your eldest son's house. The house collapsed inward, instantly crushing all 10 of Job's children beneath its rubble." The messenger's words hung in the air, a death knell echoing in the sudden silence. Job stood frozen, the weight of total, unimaginable loss settling upon him. He slowly began to rise, his spirit reeling from the catastrophe that stole everything. Job tore his robe and shaved his head, outward signs of profound grief. He fell to the ground, not in despair or anger, but in worship. He uttered, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. Yahweh gave, and Yahweh has taken away. Blessed be the name of Yahweh." Again, the accuser appeared before the presence in the heavens. The presence acknowledged Job's continued integrity, despite being incited to ruin him without cause. But the accuser challenged again, "Skin for skin. Stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh." The presence allowed the accuser power over Job's body, but commanded that his life be spared. Job was then struck with painful sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. His wife, unable to bear his suffering, again urged him, "Curse God and die." But Job replied, "You speak as a foolish woman. Shall we receive good from God and not trouble?" Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, heard of his calamity and came to mourn with him. They sat with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights without speaking a single word. Finally, their silence broke, and they began to speak, offering their condolences, then their judgments. Their words turned to accusation. "The innocent do not suffer like this. Confess your hidden sin, Job." They insisted God would not punish without cause, urging him to repent. But Job fiercely maintained his blamelessness, refusing their false comfort and painful theology. His heart yearned for justice, for an explanation from the divine. He declared his profound longing. "I want to speak with the Almighty." Job cried out, desperate for a hearing from his Maker. He lifted his gaze to the sky, a man who had lost everything, asking to be heard. "Oh, that I had one to hear me," he pleaded, his voice choked with anguish. "Let the Almighty answer me," he said, not a threat, a plea for a hearing. Suddenly, the sky above Job darkened, and a mighty storm began to build. A massive column of dust and wind swirled across the landscape, rising to meet the bruised clouds. From the heart of the whirlwind, a powerful voice thundered down, shaking the ground. "Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" the voice demanded. The questions fell like blows. "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" Job fell to his knees, utterly overwhelmed by the cosmic scale of the question. The voice continued, "Who shut up the sea with doors when it broke from the womb?" Job trembled violently, covering his mouth with a dust-stained hand, unable to speak. "Have you commanded the morning in your days, and caused the dawn to know its place?" He sank further, prostrate on the ground, dwarfed by the power that commanded creation. "Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the treasures of the hail?" Awe and helplessness washed over Job. His suffering felt insignificant against such might. "Can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades, or loosen the cords of Orion?" The universe itself seemed to spin above him, grand and indifferent to his earthly pain. The relentless questioning revealed infinite power, unknowable wisdom, and the mystery of creation. The storm began to subside, leaving a profound and stunned silence in its wake. Job, still on the ground, finally responded to the overwhelming presence. "I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you," he whispered. He received no explanation for his suffering, only the unchallengeable truth of the divine presence itself. The voice then turned to Job's friends, rebuking them for their flawed understanding. Job, unbroken in spirit, prayed for their forgiveness, an act of grace from his suffering. His suffering ended, and Job received double his former wealth and possessions. New servants worked the land, and Job's fields bore fruit again. But a quiet grief remained, the memory of his first 10 children never truly replaced. Job was blessed with new sons and daughters, beautiful and strong, filling his home with joy. He lived for many years, seeing his children and grandchildren to the 4th generation. An old, gnarled hand rests gently on a newborn lamb, a symbol of life's continuous renewal. Job died, an old man, full of days and profound wisdom forged in his unanswered pain. His life was restored. His question was not,